All right, hi everyone. Today, welcome to our IT-Conductor ChAI for Operations webinar. I'm going to go through a brief introduction about the automation solution for implementing change in IT operations, and also show you some live demos of typical day in the life of in IT operations and why change is relevant and why automation increases efficiency on the end-to-end process of implementing change. So let's go through and give you a quick overview of solution, and then we'll dive into the live demo. My name is Linh Nguyen, IT-Conductor co-founder and CEO, and with 30 years working in the SAP and IT environment, I have seen many types of changes, both automated and manual, and why there's a need for automation as well as orchestration from a efficiency driving auditability and accountability through changes. So we did a presentation last month on our ChAI, which is stand for Change Automation Intelligence, relating to coding change. So SAP Transports is one of those example types of changes involved. So today I'll talk about other types of changes, as well as just giving you a summary of how also coding change like transports can also be automated by ChAI. And we'll go through the live demo and also take a poll of just what some folks are doing out there in terms of how they're implementing and managing change. Okay, so let's step through. So right now there's just a quick poll of folks online about what type of change that are consuming a lot of the IT operations today. So if we can pop up a quick poll for this, and right now I'll just show the poll results. Time consuming. Actually, this one I find lots of customers having issue there. We can this is an equal share. Yeah? So manual stopping, starting, applying kernel patches, user access for approvals, configuration rollout. Interesting, not a lot of people doing change management for configuration, but okay, let's go through our next part here and talk about what type of challenges that manual change transport in IT operations. So through the implementation of change, we know there are a lot of repetitive tasks. There's delays in implementing changes, everything from cross teams, system patching, or things that slow down operations. The dependency on many people, especially in a, say, maintenance window to implement a change, you might have a lot of staffing delay. There's a lack of workflow visibility. A lot of changes are manual, and they're done by different people on different platforms. They track differently. They even log their work differently, and so there's a lack of visibility into the change itself. The other part is security. So think about when you're doing a change, you may need privileged access to systems that you typically don't have on a day-to-day. Issuing you the right access to implement those changes. For instance, maybe a HANA user that needs to be issued in order to do a patch on HANA level or something like that, or maybe a fighter access. And so as we go on, there's many changes that piles on top of each other. The limited scalability increases the chance of making mistakes during changes. So the bottlenecks and the missing. So for instance, if you're requesting a 30-minute window to implement a kernel patch across multiple systems, and you're spending most of the time doing manual stop-start, that can cause outages and missing the downtime window, right? So missing the SLA as well. So how does ChAI help in this solution to provide the change automation? So ChAI does end-to-end orchestration. We also do the IT operations. So many of the common day-to-day activities that are done manually can be managed through orchestration. That reduces the attack surface for having so many people on the platform and manually entering things and changing things. And a change could include multiple things. So for instance, an example maybe, and we'll do this demo later, you could be transporting some code, and then maybe a fix for something that requires a kernel to be updated. whether OS kernel, SAP kernel, or whatever, Oracle or HANA patching, and then you need a reboot, restart to activate that configuration, the change. So you've got now coding, you've got operational tasks like restart, you have a kernel, which is like a configuration type update on systems. So all these change combined into one could also increases your downtime outage window, right? A dependency. And then also the process of automating the change requires some level of approval, and tracking those approval and also the auditability of it allows kind of an integration into things like the downstream IT service management, for example, ticket desk, etc., in order for you to have a change record. And most tickets today are outside of the change orchestration, so they are disparate type systems controlling this. We see that the real-time visibility and control into the change helps to give you an end-to-end view of the whole process, from the request, from the approval review process, from the execution, and then the reporting and the compliance side of that. So let's time for another poll. How automated are your IT ops workflow currently? So this is just a poll on how people are doing the change. Are they manual? Are they partially automated? I'd say a lot of people do have some level of automated scripts, depending on the change. Obviously, if you're talking about configuration or transports, coding, or doing operational restarts, I'm gonna vote for mine there. So yeah, partially automated. So a lot of people have partial. So there are some level of automation, but not a whole lot. And we want to be able to implement more over time that moves towards fully automated or very little manual activity. Manual might include things like approval process, might be just a click of an approval button or an email. That would help reduce the amount of manual waiting times for a particular type of change, right? So let's go through now, continue on our presentation. So how does ChAI work? So ChAI, as an orchestration way of attacking this issue, allows us to have a service catalog of sort where you can request the change, right? It's a predefined service catalog of things that you can change. And then through the request process, you have the approval routing based on the role of the requester and who's the approval management, etc. Like a change management or a change manager can approve that. We can also look at the execution of those changes. So the difference with ChAI is we're not just doing the requesting process and approval. We're actually implementing the task that executes, whether, like I said, whether it's a coding change, whether it's a configuration, whether it's an operational things like a stop, start, restart, or maybe even also from a DevOps standpoint, deploying systems, for instance, as infrastructure as code. Those are all types of changes in the environment that could be orchestrated through ChAI, right? And the compliance afterwards is that auditing of when things happen, what is successful, are there tickets tied to it, are there comments to be reviewed about the change for lesson learned and knowledge base before the change manager would close out the change. So here we can look at the workflow. IT-Conductor is a cloud-based agentless platform, and through workflow orchestration, we have an IT-Conductor gateway that interacts with the customer environment, and this happens very seamlessly for anything from application to database to OS. So talking in terms of being able to execute commands and remotely orchestrate those activities across multiple layers of infrastructure and application allows us to execute the change and then report back the activity, the timestamps, the logs, the trace, and then IT-Conductor can centralize the ticketing of that change, including the dashboard, the actual workflow for each change, and then be able to run the compliance report to, let's say, show auditors that these are the changes I've done for this week or this month. These are the success, how long it took, and be able to go back. And so next time you're requesting similar change, you have a history, you have a compliance record, and it's easier for management to approve change when there's a history of, you know, if you're requesting 30 minutes, did the log show you took 30 minutes last time, maybe you took longer. So this type of things are important for a change review board. So this time I'm going to hop into a live demo scenario. So let's do that. We'll spend about 15 minutes in the demo, and then we'll open up for questions after that. Essentially, we have a service catalog. So IT-Conductor is a web-based platform. And again, we are interacting with the systems agentlessly and securely behind your firewall, whether it's on-site or whether it's on cloud or managed by some other managed service providers. The idea here is that when you enter IT-Conductor, you might have a health dashboard of open issues. Systems that are monitored and managed are categorized by their role, whether it's development or whether it's production, QA, etc. You have open issues that we do monitor, so including changes, etc. We're also looking at things like what systems are under management. We also track the tickets that are open, including recording of, like I said, one of the change is promotion of code, so SAP Transport, for instance, and then tickets that are related to change going on, whether it's activating users that are privileged access, whether it's patching kernel updates, whether it's rebooting, etc. So this is one view. We have dashboards into the environment, give you a 30,000 feet overview of systems under management. Again, here you can see the type of alerts in your environment. So in order to implement change, we have to have real-time access to systems to know their health state before and after. So we will be doing a lot of the change today demo on the on-premise environment. You can see the many types of systems, applications, and infrastructure under management. Just an example, we will go down and say, here's our service desk type dashboard where we have tickets that open related to changes. So for instance, if you are requesting a bunch of change that's been approved by the CAP and maybe doing the change for this weekend, etc., tickets will be tracking those activities individually. All right, so let's go and start an activity. So a service catalog to us, you access through our support menu and you go to a service catalog. And these can be customized, obviously, for each customer. And there may be a catalog of items that they want to automate. And then we configure those and access them as well as the people that have the roles to do that. So today's change, I would describe kind of a simple scenario, right? So let's say we are doing some code promotion. Maybe we have our ChAI has managed the code. So code is a configuration change. I mean, one type of change that promote, to QA to production for testing. We have our change management for SAP Transport, for instance. So for instance, if you are doing some transports, this code may be needed before you can say update a kernel, SAP kernel, maybe update a patch because there was security nodes related. So all of this may go together. So for instance, that you put in some transports already, we have ability to kind of track the transport, the logs of transports. This can be orchestrated to show you that ChAI can promote code throughout the environment, right? And then what we're going to do is after you implement the code, you're going to perhaps update the OS or the SAP kernel. So in our service catalog, we talk about like basic support. We can do SAP kernel update. We can do, for instance, the operating system as well. We can do a system reboot or patching of kernel. So let's say there's a vulnerability that comes out. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to launch into, so we promoted some code. We're going to say, all right, I'm going to activate a user for, let's say, a database operation. And then at the same time, I'm going to patch the OS. And then after all of that is done, I'm going to stop the application and then I'm going to restart the system. So this might all be described in one chain of related events for a change window, right? So for instance, I'm going to go in first and talk about the user. So for instance, if I'm going to go into user activation to get the privilege ID to start one of the database maintenance activity, we can say, for instance, in this case, I'm going to my HANA environment. Just for this test, we have a user, this user called test in the database. Maybe this has a DBA privilege access. Typically, we would deactivate the user. So when it's not in regular change window, this user could be a system user, is deactivated. So you can see it's deactivated. So we're going to use ChAI now to go ahead and request as part of the change process the unlock of this user, right? So that the DBA admin can start their work to implement the change. So typically something like that is a privileged access request. You can go in there and you can say, I need this user to be unlocked so that I can do my maintenance activity. And as simple as that, we create the request through the service catalog, right? So as soon as we do that, we launch a automation that's done as a workflow to unlock, to get this user unlocked. So now the requester is going to wait for an email to say, yes, this user's unlocked. Now you can proceed with your change window, right? So we can also go back to our help desk, and it's created a ticket here. So you can see activate user. Automatically we trigger that, right? So let's say you also have a ticket related to this change. You can reference the ticket number, etc. The service engineer implementing the change can comment along the line, capture logs, update traces, attach documents, etc. And also when the change is done, they can go back here and say, please deactivate this user, right? So for instance, that's a typical change that is recorded in change request. So that while that's doing it, right? So we have our database user and we have our ticket to track that. So let's assume now the admin got their DBA access, right? Let me double check to make sure. We have, in relation to not only getting the ticket, but I just got an email saying that this activate user incident has been assigned. So essentially there's a ticket that tracks this activity, right? So it's about reportability and the compliance. Now that the user's been activated, we're going to go ahead and say, well, I'm going to patch the operating system. And while I patch the operating system, I'm going to then also, because patching can be while the application's up, and then I'm going to restart the system, and then I'm going to reboot the OS. So multiple things can happen in parallel. So let's go ahead and look at our service catalog. Right. So let's go back to our service catalog and go back here. All right, so in our service catalog now, I'm going to say, I'm going to patch the OS, right? So let's do that as an example of a change. So we can do patching at multiple levels. At the OS level, we can do patching kernel, as I said before, even databases. But I'm going to pick an application. I know what the box is that I want to patch. While the application's still up, I can patch, but I can defer the reboot of the system until the patching is done. So let's go through here. So we can pull from repository, for instance, and patch to certain levels. We can pick, and once it's tested in sandbox, obviously the kernel that is available for different systems is dependent also the platform availability matrix, what is supported for the application. So I'm going to leave this reboot out, but I can reference an external change request, for instance. I'm just going to do this today for the demo. So this can be auditing, can be reference. We can pull it from, let's say, an ITSM, ServiceNow, etc., or Jira ticket, right? So I'm going to patch that OS. So remember, this is an automation now, so you're not doing manual access to the operating system to do patching, anything like that. So once we submit this, we have another change going on, right? So now we have a workflow that's essentially kicked off to automate this kernel patching of the system, right? And that workflow now should initiate another ticket. So I can look here. I just got an email instantly that this patching of the kernel has just started as a request. Again, it's important to track that activity. We can go back to our help desk. We also have now the patching. So the patching of the kernel ticket just came in here. Again, as an engineer implementing the patch, I have access here not only to the ticket, but the ticket has a live connection to the workflow that is being implemented right now. So this change of color means the instantiating work in progress, and we'll leave that while that's going there. Okay, so while this is patching, now I can enter a command, etc. Now think about the change. I want to patch the OS, but I also need to reboot it later. So let's go ahead and stop SAP. right? Stop the Oracle database, etc. This happened to be SAP and Oracle. So what we do have now is we can go into our change dashboard for stop-start automation. So it's important, again, if you're doing this for across different systems, you don't want 20 people trying to log on, stopping the app, waiting for it, waiting for the OS, etc., database to stop. You can go into IT-Conductor, and we have our live view into the availability dashboard. So I can go in and actually request a full stop of the applications. So here we can go in and say this system is on, actually, I think this is the system here. Yeah. So this is live update. Response times, availability of the system is being monitored by IT-Conductor. I can go in here and I'm going to request a stop start of Oracle, right? SAP and Oracle. That's the system. Again, this is automation. You can go ahead and say, I want that system and fill out the wizard. I want to stop the database. I want to also specify the host. If you have a distributed host, meaning a database on one server and SAP on another server, you can also do that as well. We have the intelligent orchestration to go ahead and do it across multiple stack, the way it's deployed across different SAP landscape. So here I am going to initiate a stop of the application. Right, so this is at real time. I'm gonna submit that. And now I have a workflow. So we have multiple things going on right now. We have a user activation. Let's go back and just show you that this user that was deactivated, now you see it's gone away. So the automation has already unlocked this user for the DBA who requested it for the change, right? And we can see that, especially going back to the workflow. So one workflow we have going on right now to stop SAP, but the other one we have on the, let's go back to our help desk. And we have that activate user. You can see that workflow now has completed, right? So we have real-time status on how long it took, and the activity is completed successfully. If it's not successful, you get the error, the logs, the trace for you to check on when that activity had failed and why it failed. So in this case, this is completed. So one change is done. While it's being implemented, we are restarting the SAP system. So here we have the workflow. Actually, this is the start one. Go back to the stop one. Of course, it's checking. We have intelligent orchestration that also check, is it an ABAP, is it a Java stack? We can use that workflow to intelligently decide the actions. Here, we are actually stopping jobs. So it's actually saying, I'm going to stop jobs on the system, and then I'm going to stop the application server. And then once I do that, I'll stop the database, right? So that workflow is already initiating. It's happening right now. What we're going to do is go back and take a look at this patching. Right, so it's checking if the version that we want to patch to is in the repo. This will take a little while, and then it's going to patch the kernel. So all of that is going on. Stopping the system is going on. The idea here is that you are tracking all this through a live dashboard. Unlike disjuncted type multiple solutions trying to solve the change where you have manual process and you not have visibility. Remember, one of the top pain point is visibility into the change. There's always going to be people asking, is the change done? What's going on? And the engineers constantly trying to report to the business or the IT team what's going on. In this case, you have a dashboard. Everybody knows the change is going on, right? Activate, etc., etc. So if they're curious, they can have access to this and look at that particular change itself and see where in the process it's up to, right? Okay, so while that's in progress, I'm going to, let's say I'm already done with my database. I mean, typically you can also put a change record in to request the account to be locked, but typically security can just go back and lock it, right? So I'm just going to go and lock the user back. So I'm done with that change. So for instance, if I go back to, yes, I can go back and say my patching's done, but let me go and update the ticket for activate user. And let's say I'm going to change completed. And please deactivate user. So you can do this at the end of the maintenance window, but let's just say, it's a way you can do that. So you can have an ongoing log of the change incidents, comments. Again, it's important to track all this in relation to the actual activity. So we can do that, right? Go back to help desk. Now that's doing that. Let's look at our stop and where we are in stopping the application. So we can go for the reboot, right? So here we are. We already stopped the jobs, and now we're stopping the application, right? So you can actually have access to the log once it's run the command to stop, and you can go into each activity and see what it's doing. This is actually stopping all. So if you're running the central instance or the application server, primary instance, all that will happen, right? So we are doing remote hands and remote management of that, right? And you can see that I implemented the comment into the ticket. So now you see the ticket says change complete deactivate user, right? So you can actually get notified, or other people, security teams can get notification, they continue doing their work there. So multiple people can go if they have the access to actually update the ticket, right? So like SAP should be down now, the database will go down soon. That's all green. We take a look at that execution log. Stopped, okay, right? So you have live access to this. And then what we're going to do at this stage is we're going to continue on, and in a little bit when Oracle stops, we're going to reboot the machine, right? So for instance, I'm going back to my patching here. Now it's past that. It's a desired patch level is inside the repository. The kernel can be patched, and this activity says I'm ready to go and patch the kernel. So that might take a little while. For the purpose of this demo, we actually done one recently, so we can take a look at patching, for instance, and what that looked like. So here's a completed one, right? So when you patch the kernel, you can see execution log. You can see what exactly was done, what the patch release you want to implement. It's downloaded. It's implementing the patch, right? So in essence, in this case, we've done an example before because it does take a little time to patch depending how big the patch is. But let's do this. The patching is happening. What we're going to do now is wait for SAP to completely stop. And then we're going to reboot following the OS kernel patching, right? So just to review what we're doing with all this at this point in time, let's look at this, right? So we are looking at the types of changes here. Let's go back here. So we've looked at repetitive things like patching, starting, stopping, applying configurations, looking at the visibility into the workflow, looking at security. So unlocking users, assigning roles, maybe even the SAP firefighter access, execution to give the privilege emergency access, right? And then we can scale this because you can have one guy on a console, and we can actually schedule all of those without having to go there and click the wizard. We can create ahead of time if approval is for a particular time window. We can actually schedule all of those changes to happen automatically, right? Well, we just similar to the concept of having a variant to run a batch job, for instance. It's pre-configured context, then we'll run the workflow, right? So really to address this, minimizing the downtime when we're implementing change by automating that and having the workflow, so you can see emails and change of comments inside tickets, and then orchestrating the actual change itself, right? So this is kind of a recap on why this is important. And again, through what we discussed here, the workflow itself can execute, can report, and interact with the system in real time. Okay. So while that is going through, I want to just look at main differences. We'll come back to the demo, make sure that it's complete some of the orchestration, but accelerating this change allows us to minimize the effort, do more with less. So IT teams can address change in the environment using automation as opposed to manual process, and have compliance and visibility into the audit process. Also, each activity in the orchestration have visibility into logs and traces, so can troubleshoot. Now, not everything will go right, but you can test it. You can see the errors. You can repeat a particular step in the orchestration if it fails for whatever reason. All right, and then you can support multiple very custom use cases in IT ops. You can come up with hundreds of types of changes across these 4 categories, right? Coding changes, configuration changes, IT operations like stop-start, and also auto deployment of infrastructure as code, like deploying resources on cloud. And then we can integrate that seamlessly into the tools process, whether upstream or downstream. So this is an important reflection on the importance of ChAI and how we can help solve the problem of implementing change at a mass scale. So now we have stopped the system already. We can actually go back and see. I'm going to go to the dashboard. And you can see a live update of the system. So this system here that we brought down, right? You can see the availability dropped. That's the application level. And then we also stopped the database. You can see the database, and you can zoom into 1 minute view as well. It started going down, right? And now the operating system itself is up. So one task we have left in this demo is to restart the operating system. So here we are with the stop-start automation. We completed that, right? So that's down. And let's go back to our patching and see where we are with that. Look like patch is done. Right? So we have already completed the patch. You can see the log. This is what I mean by traceability. It's done. Since we didn't mark reboot inside of the workflow, it won't do the reboot here. So it will allow us to actually execute the reboot through change management. So let's go back to our service dashboard. Okay. So I have a shortcut here, service catalog. We're going to go down to OS administration, and we're going to reboot the system. Again, typically what you have during reboot is you need to have different teams, maybe the infrastructure team, and then you got to get them on and get it do. So we got to hand off, and the time wasted in that. What we can do is automate this. We're not taking away that job, but we are orchestrating the process and have central control. And of course, it's already approved access in order to do this activity, right? So it's not just like we're bypassing some security. So in this case, I'm going to very simply request this host, and I'm just going to reference the change that we had. Again, we can look up. Okay, so this is a simple reboot because SAP is down, the kernel patch is down, and just one more check here for sure. Yeah, it's not going to reboot here because I didn't check reboot. So I know that. I'm going to submit the reboot separately. Okay, that's created the reboot change, and I expect a ticket to be created. Right, so if I go back to my service dashboard, and I have a reboot. Let me also get an update from my help desk. There should be a ticket now open for rebooting the system. Right, so that should take me into this reboot. So again, now I'm completing the change. So because the reverse is after reboots, we will restart the application through automation again, and then we're done with the change. So this kind of wraps up. I won't wait for this reboot because it might take a little while for the demo, but essentially it does the activity of restarting the machine to activate the kernel, the OS kernel that we updated. So as far as that activity is done, what we have is that the patching completes. And then we have the reboot complete, and that closes out the change. So now you have an example of multiple things related to one change activity that relates to access to do some work on the system, the database. You have some work to maybe implement code change. You have a update of security patching in the OS. You have stop and start of the application. So all these changes are managed through IT-Conductor, through the ChAI, to implement an end-to-end orchestration, allow you visibility, real-time control, real-time status, and also the compliance side for reporting those type of audit, right? So this point in time, I want to thank you for your time. I will wrap up this. So we've done the complete kind of end-to-end demo of the ChAI capability to do the orchestration for change management, especially IT operations changes. Okay, any questions? Let's open up.
Lynn, we have some questions from the audience. The first one is, what's the learning curve like for non-technical users, say a business stakeholder, who are appointed to approve changes?
Learning curve, with the orchestration workflow, we are out of the box running in, say 80% is already a workflow that we have in our catalog, which essentially will just customize that for the particular company's process. So they have certain ways, the approval, for instance, we'll configure that. And since it's a live orchestration through workflow diagrams, it's very easy to digitize this and show folks how it works, right? So we have a very simple request process. We have a very simple monitor process for the actual workflow. And then, of course, for the compliance, you have emails, ticketing, integration. So all of this happens very seamlessly. It can implement change very quickly and then do KT with the user and take them through those scenarios.
We have a second question. Is there a role-based access control to limit who can request, approve, or implement changes?
Yes, absolutely. So IT-Conductor is RBAC securities. That's role-based access control. So there are groups, there are authorizations provided, whether you are an administrator, where the user, you may be approver. So as you can see, an example in here, in the change management, we have the ability for, let's say, if it is a production change, there is an approval process, and the approval process here, for instance, can be routed to only managers and assign certain roles. We can integrate with even Active Directory and have groups of people belonging to different groups for their responsibility. So there is a segregation of duty sort. Same thing with the portal access for who can request. Could be developers onboarded for requesting program change, could be IT operations teams that are accessing to request certain service catalog items. But essentially, yes, we have RBAC security that's designed to allow very custom granular security to do certain operations. Obviously, you don't want somebody just randomly going in there and stopping systems and do that kind of reboot, right? Those are very privileged activity. And we have concepts of segregation of duty for the user, but also when we automate, we have what we call robot users, who are technical users assigned associated with proper accounts that can do certain activities. So you have full control of how security is implemented in IT-Conductor. Good question. And let me just make sure this. Oh, yeah, so reboot is actually in progress. Just to prove that it is actually rebooting the machine. I think we have our OS session up here. Oh, there it is. So I got closed out. So you can see the reboot automatically happen. I'm just checking this, but this bypassed the need for somebody to manually log on and SSH into the server and execute. So that's a different security problem as well, to have maybe teams that have access to OS level that can be implemented through IT. Automation should remove the attack layer surface and minimize that as possible. So we have that activity that's happening right there. So I think this wraps up. I want to summarize. Thank you again for attending today's IT operational, the ChAI for Change Automation Intelligence, in talking about many different types of changes. Again, reiterating configuration changes, programming changes, IT operation tasks like stop, start. You can do system patching. We can do things like even upgrades, patching, as well as rolling out a new systems through DevOps integration into, say, GitHub, that we have our infrastructure as code automation. That's also a type of change to deploy and implement system changes. So thank you very much. And if you're interested to follow us online, feel free to reach out with IT-Conductor. We have our regular blogs as well as our videos. In this, we also have our very detailed documentation about ChAI itself. Our docs.itconductor.com points out many different automation scenarios, including ChAI, for instance, through the kernel update process. If you're interested how we can help streamline IT-Conductor's streamline of SAP kernel update or even HANA updates, OS updates can be implemented. You can see exactly how we implement that, and it's transparently built as a service catalog item and then adapted to your user environment. Okay, well, thank you very much. And this wraps up the webinar.